They fired me for being a dinosaur, forgetting that I'm the one who buried the bones of this entire company. Welcome to my new story.
The fluorescent lights in the archives hummed like a dying migraine. I stared at the terminal where my 30-year legacy in database architecture was being erased by a girl whose personality was a LinkedIn quote. "We're pivoting to a liquid data posture," Chloe said, snapping her gum. She was the founder's niece, a 24-year-old nightmare with a degree in brand synergy. "Elias, your systems feel heavy," she chirped, dragging my name into a folder labeled Legacy Junk. "We need Spark. We're going fully serverless." I adjusted my glasses. "The cloud is just other people's computers, Chloe. Computers I leased under an ironclad contract 15 years ago." She waved a hand dismissively. "Details. You're bogged down in the how. I'm looking at the vibe." I didn't argue. I just moved my desk to the basement and opened my private console. Chloe thought she was cutting fat. She didn't realize I was the skeleton. I initiated a transfer of all primary domain authorities to a shell company I'd built for emergency redundancy. The approver? Chloe. She rubber-stamped it while ordering a matcha latte. By Friday, the blackout hit. The website vanished, the payroll locked. Chloe screamed at a blank monitor, but the keys weren't in the building anymore. They were in my pocket. I'm a dinosaur, apparently. But when the world goes dark, the dinosaur is the only one who knows how to find the fire. I'm not looking for a job anymore. I'm looking for a ransom. Adios, Chloe. Enjoy the vibe. The fluorescent hum in the new executive wing felt like a victory lap I wasn't invited to. Sarah, the CEO's hand-picked disruptor, tapped her tablet with a manicured nail. "Marcus, your architecture is too rigid. We're moving to a fluid, borderless ecosystem." She smiled, but her eyes were already scanning the room for someone more relevant. My 30-year tenure in cybersecurity was being compressed into a single box. My new office was a converted janitor's closet on the 4th floor that smelled of floor wax and corporate betrayal. I didn't scream. I didn't even sigh. I just sat down in the dark and opened the back door I'd built into the company's encryption kernel back in 2004. Sarah thought she was streamlining by migrating our data to a flashy third-party provider. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't the fat she was cutting, I was the skeleton. And I had just started removing the bones. I spent the next 6 hours reassigning the ownership tags of the company's primary security tokens to a private trust I'd established for legacy auditing. The system flagged the transfer for approval. Sarah, likely distracted by an artisanal avocado toast, rubber-stamped it within minutes. By Monday, the company didn't technically own its own firewall anymore. I did. Or rather, my trust did, and the subscription was about to expire. I watched the traffic logs hit my servers, a sea of red lights signaling a total blackout. They wanted a fluid ecosystem. Well, the pipes just burst. "Enjoy the flood, Sarah. I'm charging by the drop now." The conference room smelled like expensive perfume and the clinical scent of a fresh MacBook. "We're pivoting to a high-frequency, aesthetic-first interface," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with the unearned confidence of a 20-something with an Ivy League inheritance. She was the CEO's niece, a creative visionary, who thought my 15 years of back-end architecture was just clutter on her sleek new dashboard. I stared at the whiteboard where my career was being reduced to a legacy footprint. Vanessa wanted spark. She wanted frictionless synergy. So I gave her exactly that. I drafted a series of operational vitality documents, technical jargon wrapped in her favorite buzzwords. Hidden in the subclauses was a total reassignment of the company's primary database keys to a private escrow account I'd established for risk mitigation. I walked into her office while she was mid-selfie. "Just some routine synergy authorizations, Vanessa." She didn't even look up. She grabbed her gold pen and rubber-stamped every single page. A violent, rhythmic click. By Tuesday, the spark became a wildfire. The system hit a hard-coded expiration date I'd set. Suddenly, the company's proprietary algorithm wasn't their property anymore. It was mine. The servers went dark, and the aesthetic interface was replaced by a single blinking cursor. Vanessa was too busy chasing the why to realize she'd signed away the how. I'm not a legacy employee anymore, Richard. I'm the sole proprietor of your company's brain. And the rent just went up. Enjoy the silence. It's very frictionless. Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The air in the office was charged with a static, desperate panic. I sat in my windowless closet, sipping a coffee that tasted like cold satisfaction, watching the digital world outside my door dissolve into a sea of red. People were hovering around printers that refused to wake up. The smart locks were jammed. The innovation dashboard that Julian, the CEO's nephew, had spent 6 figures on was displaying a single mocking line of text: access denied. Julian had spent the last 3 months modernizing my infrastructure, which mostly meant deleting the redundant backups I'd maintained for 20 years to save on cloud overhead. He called me a relic. He said my protocols were a friction point for his agile vision. So I gave him exactly what he wanted: a frictionless exit. Under the guise of a cloud migration strategy, I'd spent my final weeks rerouting the primary DNS records and encryption headers to a private server cluster I'd leased under a shell company. Julian had rubber-stamped the strategic transition forms without reading a single word. At 9:15 a.m., the blackout went total. Julian burst into my office, face flushed a blotchy red. "The keys aren't working, Arthur. The cloud provider says the account is delinquent." I leaned back, looking at the physical authenticator key glowing in my hand. "It's not delinquent, Julian. It's private property." They wanted to move everything to the cloud. Well, they finally made it. It's just my cloud now. And the forecast? Expensive. Extremely. The fluorescent lights in the boardroom flickered with the same rhythm as the panic in Julian's eyes. He sat across from me, his Disruptor of the Year plaque gathering dust on a shelf behind him. 3 months ago, he'd called me a legacy expense and moved my entire back-end infrastructure team to a Slack channel that was eventually deleted. He wanted a lean, borderless company. He wanted a vibe that didn't include the woman who spent 20 years soldering the very nerves of this firm together. I didn't argue when he fired me. I just handed over a digital transition audit that he rubber-stamped between bites of a $25 salad. He thought he was signing off on an archive project. He didn't realize he was signing a master lease. Under the guise of modernization compliance, I had moved the company's primary server farm, its encryption keys, and every single patent portfolio to a private shell company, Apex Logic. Now, Monday morning has arrived like a funeral. The website is a ghost. The payroll system is locked. Julian's cloud has evaporated because I turned off the rain. "Ellen, fix this," he hissed, his voice trembling. I didn't reach for a keyboard. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper, the final invoice. Description: Manage infrastructure licensing. Amount: $3 million annually, non-negotiable. I'm not a disgruntled employee anymore, Julian. I'm the landlord of your entire digital existence. You wanted to outsource the how so you could focus on the why. Well, here is the why. Because you didn't respect the plumber and now you're drowning. Pay up or stay in the dark. Your move, Disruptor. The quarterly alignment mixer smelled like expensive gin and catastrophic arrogance. I stood by the balcony, watching Miles, the new VP of Velocity, explain to a group of bored interns how my 20-year logistics architecture was a friction point for the company's new agile posture. He'd spent the last month pivoting my department into a storage closet, replacing my hard-coded redundancy buffers with a flashy third-party dashboard that had the stability of a house of cards in a hurricane. "We're lean now, Arthur," Miles had sneered during my exit interview, clutching a green juice like a scepter. "We don't need a dinosaur babysitting the backbone." I didn't argue. I just adjusted my glasses and handed him the cloud modernization protocol. He rubber-stamped it while checking his reflection in his phone. He thought he was streamlining the infrastructure. He didn't realize he was signing the deed to the entire digital cemetery. Monday morning arrived like an extinction event. The Agile dashboard was a black hole. The shipping manifests? Encrypted. The payroll gateway? Redirected to a private server cluster I'd leased under a shell company called Apex Flow. I sat on my porch, sipping a coffee spiked with cold reality. and watched my phone explode with desperate texts. Miles wanted agility. He wanted a pivot. So, I gave him a front row seat to his own funeral. The cloud he loved so much just drifted into my backyard, and the ransom for the rain starts at 7 figures. Welcome to the new ecosystem, Miles. It's cold out here,